Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy April 17th. We're going to jump right in. You're here for a workshop called EQ for IT projects. My name is Perry Herrera. I serve as the Senior Director of the Enterprise Project Management Office at San Diego County Office of Education. EQ stands for Emotional Intelligence, and what we're going to be doing today is exploring a little bit about that topic. First up, I wanted to share and introduce our team. As I mentioned, we're the EPMO. We are within the IT division at SDCOE. At the bottom left, there you can see Risa Fickett, our Senior Project Manager. Far right, Andrew Baldwin, IT Project Manager, and Candace Wong, Project Management Assistant. And here we are offsite. We were doing an offsite retreat that particular day, strategizing for the year. A little bit about us, we really focus on developing methodology and tools and templates around IT projects. We support internal projects for our organization. We also assist with some outreach to school districts in our county. Some of our project management services in-house are actually running a project, but we also do kind of consultations, and we'll jump in on a project to support where needed, and then we'll leave. We offer lots of training, and at our core, we really do believe people, process, technology is what's important in that order. And so if people to us is very important, then you can see that a topic like soft skills or emotional intelligence would be really important. As they say in all the different PMI trainings we've gone to and different boot camps, project management is actually about 70 to 80% power skills, like communication, problem solving. We tend to focus a lot on how to run a project, and we give you tools and techniques. So today's a little bit different. It's more of the how to be in the work setting versus the what to do. However, with this book, that we're going to be talking about, it actually did lay out some what to do scenarios for us as we're learning how to be. So our team really loves to learn. We've done several book studies in the past. And so this year we decided to pick a book called Soft Skills for Hard People. We got it actually because of its subtitle, A Practical Guide to Emotional Intelligence for Rational Leaders. And what we were trying to find out is how can we learn new skills to grow our own EQ at work and with our project teams. Some of the other things we've read in the past are really good at introducing what emotional intelligence is, but you're left wondering, well, how do I actually do that, or what does that look like? And so that's really why we picked the book. And so we wanted to share some takeaways with you that we got out of it and see if there's anything that you might want to try, because we've actually started trying a lot of these techniques in here. What was interesting is the book didn't say what the 5 components of EQ are. So we went off on our own and brought this into the presentation to connect some of the things that we got out of the book back to Daniel Goleman's EQ framework. So one of the first 5 components of emotional intelligence is simply self-awareness. And the book addresses a bit about how to develop that, steps you can take. Second component is self-regulation. Number 3 is motivation. That's internal or intrinsic motivation. Empathy, and last, social skills. So with that, we were able to take a look at what we read in the book and make a direct connection back to all of those 5 components. And so really for us, what we think our workshop goal is today with you is to just share some techniques that resonated with us that you might want to consider trying. And from the book, we learned a lot. We picked 5 different ideas or things that we read that really resonated with us. So starting down here at the bottom left, you can see conversation killers was a topic. And we were wondering, do we kill conversations? Are we cutting people off? Are we doing things that don't move a conversation forward? So we aligned that one with self-awareness. Understanding anger, that was something that popped up in the book around, sometimes we're not always satisfied in the workplace, either on our project or with politics or what have you. So what does anger actually mean? Where does it come from? And how can we understand it better? Third was core values, and that ties back to internal or intrinsic motivation. What do we stand for as individuals and as a team? What motivates us to do the type of work that we do? Empathy. We've all heard the word empathy. It can be a confusing term. What we really liked about this lesson that we got out of the book is how to do empathy. We thought that was an interesting look at it, so we wanted to share that with you today. And then last, under social skills, we noticed that there was a lot in the book around communication and how to ask different types of questions to yield different responses. So we learned that there's 6 different types of questions, 6 kinds of questions, like who, what, where, when, why, and how, but they each do different things for us when we're talking with others. So what to expect. This is definitely not a book review in any way. And on top of that, we are not calling ourselves experts in EQ. We've taken steps to learn more about it. We're sharing with you what we're trying to do. But wanted to put that out there is that we're all feeling like we're learning this together. We're just sharing today things that really stood out to us. If you've been to our sessions before, you know that we prefer to keep things a little bit more active. So you'll have a chance to use the chat today, to use reactions. We'll do one breakout room discussion. We're not planning on any breaks in today's session since it's 90 minutes. We want to use all the time for our conversations. We did email to you 2 different documents. So if you haven't had a chance to check your email, they're in there waiting for you. If you want to grab them now, you should be able to click that link on the screen, the blue hyperlink that says click here for session handouts. But what we've delivered to you today is first kind of like a cheat sheet or a Cliff's Notes. This is a 6-page document that just has some of the highlights of what we're sharing today. So we thought that would be a nice takeaway for you if you wanted to have that handy or even share with other people. Separate from that, we sent you a PDF that has 2 pages, and if you were to print anything, this might be the document to print. You don't have to, but it might be handy for you. It's the second one. It's called the Core Values Exercise, and it's basically a larger version of what is in the cheat sheet version. It's just bigger and easier to use if you're planning to use it. We'll share more about the files as we get into the documents, but I just want to make sure that you knew that we had them for you, and you can click here to grab them if you want to. Okay, so we are going to now talk a little bit about who's here. You've met us, we talked about why we're here, but let's find out who's registered for today's workshop. So again, we're really excited to see the interest in a lot of these sessions. 81 people registered. We've got 58 different local education agencies represented in the registrations, at least across 24 counties, and maybe even outside of California. So why don't you go ahead and find the reaction button. So it's a react, it says smiley face. Okay, if you hover over it or click it, you'll see there's like a thumbs up, a heart. Yes, you found it. Good. Nice job. Yes, well done. We found it. Okay, now here's what you're going to do. I'm going to do a little roll call by county, all right, by region and county. And when you see your region pop up, that's where you're going to blast us with your reactions, right? We want to see where you're at. Now, unfortunately, Region 1 couldn't make it here today, so we can all put the reaction of a sad face up for them. I don't even know if there's a sad face reaction, is there? There's a laugh and there's no sad. Okay, all right, no sads. All right, so Region 1, we missed you today. Region 2, we've got 1 person from Butte who made it. Yay, Butte. Region 3, we've got El Dorado, Placer County, Sacramento County, and Yolo, right up there at the top center of our state. Yes, Region 4, off to the west coast, San Francisco Bay Area side, Alameda, San Francisco, and San Mateo. Nice to see you. Moving down the coast, Region 5, Monterey, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz. Nice, I saw that thumbs up there. Region 6, San Joaquin and Stanislaus. Welcome, thank you for registering and joining us. Region 7, right smack dab in the middle of our state, Fresno, there you are. Region 8, Kern and Santa Barbara, hello. Jumping down south, it skips over LA. Region 9, I know we're going to see a lot because there's a lot of San Diego folks here. Imperial, Orange, and San Diego, welcome. Region 10, moving up to our east side of our state, Inyo and San Bernardino. Hey, San Bernardino, look at you. Nice job. And then Region 11, LA, you've got your own region since you're so large. You take 30% of your students represent our entire state. I just learned that on Monday. I thought that was phenomenal. Just in LA County alone. All right, and then check it out. Welcome. Let's give lots of love to our out-of-state friends from Missouri and New York. Hello, it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Okay, very cool. Now, just a quick reminder, we've got our cameras on if you can. If you cannot, we fully understand, but if you can, please keep your cameras on. It really helps us with engagement and just being able to connect a little bit better. Mute and unmute yourself as needed when appropriate. Let's use the chat to respond to and ask questions. So if something's on your mind, feel free to drop something in there. We're monitoring it. And then we will invite you to go in there a few times today. And let's go ahead and raise our hand and lower our hand if you've got comments and questions. We welcome that too. And then we already found the React, so we know how to respond visually. And then just, aside from that, we really enjoy being present and we entertain questions. We want to hear from you. We'll honor the start and end times, and let's just have a little fun while we work. Okay, so we made it through housekeeping. I'm right on track on time. This is perfect. So we're jumping into our first core value, and that graphic we gave you. I know, I never do that. When we shared the graphic of the EQ, they're in a certain order, so we're not necessarily going exactly in that order. So we decided we wanted to start the conversation today around core values because we felt like, the way we operate really comes from within. Our behaviors and actions really do reflect what we value. And so that's a big piece of the book that I read that stood out. So as I mentioned before, we're 4 individuals on one team. So you can see us here at another offsite retreat. Andrew had his finger painting that day. Can you believe it? And what you see actually is we were doing self-portraits of other people. So everything that people are holding up is a drawing that someone else had worked on for them. But when we formed as a team, we really talked extensively about how we wanted to operate as a team. Like, what do we stand for as a team? What are our values as a team? We did a lot of that work right when we started up. But it was interesting to us because when we read the book, it really talked about, like, what are your independent core values? Like, what's Perry's compared to Andrew's, Candace's compared to Reese's? Like, what do we individually stand for? What fires us up? What really motivates us? And we've done other assessments. We do Strengths Finder here at work, so we know our strengths. We've done a communication styles assessment, but this one's really more around just, at your core, what do you stand for? And then moreover, why does that matter? And so what we were trying to explore is why does it matter to find out your core values? So what we did first is we sat down together at a table and we had this handout that came from the book. Now, this is where if you wanted to get yours out or refer to it, you can. It's either on page 1 of the broader cheat sheet document, or it's that standalone. If you happen to print it out, I'm going to invite you to use it in a minute. But let me tell you what we did. So we had read the chapter. We were talking about these topics, and then we decided to give this a whirl. So on this printout, what we did first is we literally followed the instructions that the author gave us. She said, first, look at this list of core values that came from Scott Joffrey. Mark 20 that stand out to you for things that you stand for at work and as a leader. Now, we were coming at this from also a leadership perspective. It doesn't have to be for leaders, even though we think that everyone in education can be a leader, regardless of job title. We marked our first 20. And then from there, we whittled it down to, of those 20, let's try to take it down to 10. And then from 10, try to get it to your top 5, the core of what you stand for. And we decided, let's just write those down. So we did this activity first to basically see, what happened, what stood out to us. And then second, we explored a little bit about what did we learn from this exercise. So before we share what we learned, this is where we wanted to turn it over to you and give you a chance to try it too, because it might make a little more sense to have the conversation after you go through the experience. So what we're inviting you to do is kind of depends on your format. If you've printed this out, obviously, kind of repeat what we did and go through the exercise and see if you can get to 5 core values for you. Same thing at work. We're taking this into a work context. If you don't have anything printed, then what you can do is you can look at this list and start on a piece of scratch paper or in Word or Notepad. Just jot down some words and try to get to your top 5. The goal for you is to try to get to your top 5. All right. If you've happened to have already done the exercise because you just have, then you might want to flip this and try it from a perspective of like at home or in my personal life. What does that look like? Because then you can start to compare, is there overlap, or you can explore that a little bit further. But for all of us in general, let's look at this from a work focus. All right. So let's start that timer. Not to give anyone pressure, but it's just a guideline. We're aiming for about 5 minutes to spend on this independently. Stop the timer. All right, everyone. 5 minutes for me felt like a really long time. I hope it wasn't too long for you. I hope it gave you just the right amount of time to get to 5, hopefully. If you're comfortable with it, if you want to share, now that you've identified it, in the chat, we'd love to see a handful of where you landed. Again, if you're willing to share, this is in lieu of us going to breakout rooms to discuss further. So I'll give you a second to type those up if you want to put in the chat. So let me just wait for another minute while you might be doing that. Oops, and we're not going to go for 5 minutes on that. Let's pause that. Okay, seeing words like faith, vision, trust, community, growth, intelligence, teamwork, reliability, humor, respect, commitment, learning, transparency. These are all great descriptors. And what was interesting for me is I think prior to the exercise personally, I think I was having a harder time articulating what my core values were. I think I had a sense, but I wasn't able to just articulate them in very plain language like this. And so I found that by doing this exercise, it just gave me some words to really describe what I do stand for in a very simple way. I didn't answer all these questions. I just part of it, I don't know if you noticed, but there's some words on this page that look similar to others, right? Like I really had to look between fun and joy, or adaptability and flexibility. And yeah, there are some differences in what those could mean. So anyhow, thank you for sharing some of yours, and let's go ahead and just share kind of our outcome now that you've experienced this. So same thing, we weren't really sure what ours were, and then we went through the activity. And so I found that for me, my core values are excellence, professionalism, organization, trustworthiness, and joy. And so if I were to ask people around me, like, does this match? Does this look like, am I way off here? I would hope that people would say, yeah, that sounds about right. Or yes, we can see that in you, right? And if not, then I might wonder, where am I not having those behaviors or actions or saying that to match those things. For Risa, hers are learning, difference, flexibility, teamwork, humor. Candace's balance, focus, learning, health, harmony. Now, Andrew, he's going to do things his own way, right? One of these things is not like the other. So Andrew, he's got freedom on his list. So there we have it. Andrew's got integrity. What is that one above faith? So small. Freedom, trust, and independence. Andrew, did I get it right?
You got it.
Yep. There's always
reading the instructions were not on the core values for me.
Andrew likes to do his own way. So Risa, we did this as a team. So what did you get out of this exercise?
So it really helped me realize how much I value flexibility and teamwork. I wasn't I knew that, but I didn't really know how important it was to me. And it really helped me understand when people kind of violate my core values, why I might get upset. Like if somebody, I'm expecting somebody to, I don't know, volunteer and they don't. And it's like, oh, wait, that's because I really value teamwork. And so that's why I'm upset. So for me, it really helped me understand kind of a source of maybe my frustration when there's violations against my core values.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's good to keep in mind, is that, sometimes we feel discontent at work, or something pops up where it just rubs the wrong way. And so maybe we don't even know why. We just know that we're having feelings. So that was kind of a takeaway for me too, is coming back to this and saying, okay, it was rubbing against my need for organization, right? Like I like things to have a process, and I was really frustrated because I was confused because there wasn't a process on this particular thing. That helps me better understand also. So it does tie in with self-awareness to know this too. So it's not only what motivates us, but I'm becoming more self-aware by understanding what my core values are. How about you, Candace? In what way did this exercise help you learn about your teammates? Oh, you're muted, Candace. Or is she muted for you also? I didn't hear her. Okay, we'll circle back, Candace. How about you, Andrew? Any insights on your end?
Yeah, for me, it seeing everybody else's answers was really a reminder that how different people are and how that bakes down to just the core, not just the way you present yourself, but who you are at a core is very different from other people. And for me, that really rung home in the sense that we're working on projects and we're creating the ways people are going to work together with teams that maybe don't work together all the time, that I need to take that into account where I might be great with independence and capability and kind of just send an engineer off into the void and make sure he comes back with the product. That might work great for somebody with the same core values as me, but for other folks who value teamwork and cooperation, that will put them in a really bad spot on a project. So it's just a reminder to think about all of these core values when you're designing the ways that other people are going to be working together.
Yeah, and you just reminded me, we're going to be talking about projecting a little bit later, but this might tie in with projecting too. Like if you have this certain set of core values, you might be projecting onto others, not realizing that they've got theirs. And so you got to account for that. We should be accounting for that. Okay, cool. You want to try
Can
it
you
out,
hear me now,
Candace?
Perry? Or,
Yeah,
sorry.
yes.
Okay,
Sounds
great. Sorry, there's something wrong with my speakers today, but
No
just
worries.
wanted to say that, yeah, looking at each person's core values, I picked up that there were some things that made me realize that that's how we get along. So, for example, Perry, we love organization. Risa, we love to learn. And then I feel like there's things that I've learned from each person that makes me realize, like, oh, this person, this is like kind of what makes them tick. And so for Andrew, making sure that he has independence or working a project, like trusting that he'll get whatever needs to be done. I feel like that has helped to work with each person. So that's my insight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, the truth is, we've joked with Andrew several times. We keep telling him like how independent he is or how much freedom he gets. Like, and so it's just been nice for camaraderie too. We're to be able to recognize and see each other. I've really enjoyed that. So again, looking at your lists in the chat, super cool. It's helpful to know what you stand for, what drives you, what motivates you, and so on. So one final thought. Risa brought up, the fact that sometimes it might help you understand where you're feeling a certain way. And I reiterated that point. So we want to, as we wrap this up, we want to dig a little bit deeper. So you've identified your core values. So now we'd like you to think of a time where you were feeling not so great at work. Something was dissatisfying. You felt discontent or you felt despondent. Hopefully it didn't last for very long. But you don't need to tell us what happened. We don't want to know the circumstance. We're just more curious. And when that did happen for you, which core value was being rubbed up against, or what value wasn't being met for you? Okay, integrity, sincerity, kindness and support, teamwork, trust, motivation. Interesting. Yeah, and I don't know if that's a new thing for you. That's not something I had typically done before. I hadn't taken it to that step to where I was able to say, okay, that's why. And I think for me personally, it helped to understand that, and it helped me kind of reframe the situation and see what I could do in that circumstance. All right, excellent. So there's much more in the book around this topic if you wanted to explore it, but we wanted to bring this activity to you because we'd done it and we felt that it had offered us some value. So as a last comment, you've done it now. Maybe there are other colleagues who you think would benefit if you're on a leadership team or if you run your own team or if you've got a colleague. That's why we provided you that extra PDF in case you wanted to take it back and repeat the activity yourself to have this conversation. Okay, we're handing over to Risa for the next concept.
All right, thanks, Perry. I'm gonna move us along. So we've talked about core values. Now we're gonna move into empathy and how do we do empathy? So we're gonna talk specifically about how to do empathy at work and specifically within our IT project teams, but honestly, you can apply it anywhere. So we know that empathy is really a highly valued skill. There's lots of studies out there that show that most employees believe that empathy is one of the most important traits for leaders. So if you're leading your organization, your staff and your project teams are looking to you for empathy. So what is it, right? And how do we do this? So to start, we're going to talk about there are two different types of empathy. So the first is really that emotional empathy, that ability to mirror and feel what the other person feels. The second type, and where we're going to spend a little more time, is on the cognitive empathy. So that's the ability to take another person's perspective, or to put it bluntly, to put yourself in their shoes. So keep in mind, we don't necessarily have to feel what they feel, but we really do need to be able to understand their perspective, and that's that cognitive empathy component. So go ahead and open your chat up if you happen to close it, and think about where might cognitive empathy come into play in your IT project. So where might you need to apply the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're doing your projects? Yes, so risks, the end user experience, what the change feels like that OCM component, absolutely. What's needed to complete the work, absolutely. Yeah, seeing change come up again, people feeling insecure, understanding that end user perspective, yes. Determining priorities, yeah, making sure people understand or don't, or having empathy if they don't understand the process. So yes, you guys are nailing it. So you can see how this is a really a critical component as we're designing our projects, so that we're not just delivering services, but we're keeping in mind what our end users and teams actually need in order to be successful. So fantastic, you guys nailed it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about doing empathy and what we need to do in order to do empathy. So we need to be able to accept that the other person's perspective is different from ours, right? Have you guys seen this cartoon before? So yeah, people have different perspectives, right? You just saw all of those core values. You can see even on our little EPMO team, we have lots of different core values. So while we may share some, and that's fantastic, we also have some different values that we need to be mindful of. So people are going to have different perspectives than ours, and we really have to let go about worrying about whether we're feeling empathy, and really just focus on being present, focused, and listening. That's what people are looking for. They don't necessarily need us to feel how they feel. They need to be heard, and they need to have a safe space to talk about, whatever it is. So a good kind of rule of thumb is to imagine that whoever you're listening to, that they're teaching and that you're trying to learn. That's what really doing empathy is about. So what I'm going to go through here is referenced on page 2 of your handout. I'm just going to walk you through just a couple of these statements you might want to avoid, right? So we want to avoid making assumptions that we understand what they're going through, making any judgments about what they're going through, or doing leading statements. So we'll just walk through a handful of these, but again, there's an entire list in your handout on page 2. So we want to avoid saying, I know exactly what you mean or feel, right? We don't know exactly. They're a different person. They have a different experience. So we don't know exactly, right? That can come off kind of condescending. I've been there. I know what you're going through. Again, we're all different people. So even if we've had a similar experience, we may have experienced it in a different way. So we want to be mindful of saying that. You must be devastated, right? That's kind of a leading statement. Like maybe they're not, it's better to be curious about how they're feeling rather than kind of projecting our own feelings on them, right? It's not that bad, at least blah, 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 right? How many of you have heard that someone say that to you before, right? Does that really make you feel good? Does it make you feel heard? No, it makes you feel dismissed, right? So let's collectively agree to try to not use that. And then the last one I wanted to share with you is, if I were in your position, I would XYZ, right? Andrew's going to talk to us a little bit later about kind of projecting and offering solutions when they are unsolicited. So we just want to be mindful that doing empathy means really listening to understand, not offering solutions at this point. So that's a little bit about what to avoid. Now let's talk about what we can actually do instead. So we want to consider using some of the statements we're going to share now to convey that we're present, right? So just give me either a hands virtual, actually you can use your reaction. So as these come up on screen, use the thumbs up reaction if it's something that you might want to try, and use the heart if it's something that you are already using in your practice. Got it? All right. So I can't begin to imagine, but that sounds difficult. So is that something you might want to try or something you already use? Yes, fantastic. Good, a lot of people are already using that. That's fantastic. All right, how about I can appreciate where you're coming from. Oh, look at that. Lots of people already using it and a lot of people willing to try it. Love it. Okay. How about I wouldn't think to do that, but I can see why you did, right? Very acknowledging of what they're doing and what they're going through. Yes, fantastic. This is a good one. That's never happened to me, and I can only guess how hard that could be for you. Yeah, so a good mix of people using it and wanting to try it. Fantastic. And then the last one I wanted to share, and there are more again on page 2, but wow, I don't know what to say. It's okay to say, I don't know what to say, right? Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. So those statements really help us convey that we're present. Let's take a look at statements to really help convey that someone's been heard, right? So it could be as easy as, I'm sorry that's happened to you. So again, if you might use that, give me a thumbs up. If you're already using that, give me a heart. Lots of people using, yes, fantastic. All right, how about, I hear what you're saying. Right, just, I hear you. Yep. Okay, I'm sad to hear that. So you're not telling them to be sad, but you're just saying you're sad to hear that. And if you're not, you don't have to use it. This is a great question. How did you respond to that? Right. So it really conveys that you've heard that they're going through something and you're curious about what they're going to do. You know. Also, what was it like for you? So again, you're being curious and you're listening. Yeah, lots of people wanting to try that. Fantastic. How are you managing? So again, like you've heard that they're going through something and you're just expressing your curiosity and your empathy that you want to know, like, you know, essentially how they're doing. And then obviously, what can I do to help? Yeah, lots of people doing that. Fantastic. So, I mean, when somebody's going through something, they want to hear that, yes, you understand that they're going through something and offering your support. So these are, again, lots of statements you can try. There are lots more in the book and we provided for you in the handout, but just wanted to kind of share those with you to kind of say that empathy is not that hard to do as long as you kind of keep some of these, you know, conversation stems in your toolbox, right? And they can really help us demonstrate that we're present and we're listening. And you know, this is how we do empathy, right? It's not too bad, right? All right. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew, who's going to take us through some conversation killers.
Turn it over to the expert on this one. So conversation killers, this is kind of what we want to talk about when we're talking about self-awareness is not killing the conversation. You know, that's literally what it means is phrases or questions or statements that pretty much lead the conversation to a dead end and don't lead it to a place of growth, developing ideas, and all of that fruitful conversation that you want as a coach or as somebody interacting with your teammates. So we're going to talk you through 3 different conversation killers that I think you'll probably find yourself doing, or at the very least finding others doing. I know I found myself guilty of all 3 of these, not even realizing it. So that's where that self-awareness comes in. We're going to talk about what they are and how to avoid them, and give you a heads up. We'll do a breakout at the end of this. If you'd like to follow along, we've got some of the stuff on page 3 of the handout. So diving into the first one, it is unsolicited advice. I think you guys all know what unsolicited advice is. You know, when you're chiming in with what you think they should have done when they didn't ask for it, and it's probably too late for it to help. You know, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's really blatant in your face. But kind of in the end, if you're entering a conversation and your goal is to educate or enlighten or change somebody or let them know how smart you are, you're not coaching or leading. You know, even if your intentions are good, if the advice isn't solicited, it's not welcomed, you're intruding. So we're going to read this example off of this conversation killer. You don't have to do this with me, so you're welcome. We're going to do it ourselves. So we got you out of that one. So I'm going to read the example off. I'll read for the person that's killing the conversation. And Perry, do you mind reading for the responder here?
The green bubbles, right?
Yep, the green bubbles.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So congrats. I heard you got a bump up in your take home.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure if they had the budget for it, but I got crazy and I asked for 15% and I got it.
Well, that just shows you should have asked for more. You should have started higher.
Yeah. Well, hey, I gotta go and get to my dinner plans.
So conversation killed. So what did Larry do wrong here? What did I do wrong here? You know, maybe she should have asked for more. Who knows? But in the end, that's not what she needs. That's the number one thing. What she needed was somebody to celebrate with her, just to hear her or whatever. She didn't come in asking for advice on how to get more. So unsolicited advice, not needed. On top of that, it's too late to help anyway. So what's the point? The point was only to show her that I was so smart and that she should have asked for more. That's not what she needs. And this could have gone better. So let's try this again, where I don't kill the conversation. Congrats. I heard you got a bump up in your take home.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure if they had the budget for it, but I got crazy and asked for 15%, and I got it.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's not surprising. You've been delivering on some big projects lately.
Thanks. Hey, a few of us are going to go celebrate dinner, going to dinner to celebrate. Can you join us?
Yeah, sure. So look at how much better that went. But when it comes to unsolicited advice, just, maybe consider, did they ask me? Is this the right time? How does this add value for them? Am I just trying to impress? And then how do I phrase it so it doesn't shame, demoralize, or impose? So just a little self-awareness about whether or not you're just throwing in advice that really isn't necessary, which can be really tough when you do know everything. Jumping into convo killer number 2, that is projecting. And in this case, when we talk about projecting, we mean when you use your own experience as a lens to assume that you understand the other person's experience. So, when you hear yourself or somebody else say, if I were you or if I were in your position, that's kind of a hint that there's some projection there. One quick example of this that I thought this was such a simple example for me, but it was so clear was, say Erin is telling me about a promotion she's getting. I might automatically just be excited for her because that's how I would be of her with the promotion. She might be more stressing and dreading the additional duties and all the stress. So those are two completely different approaches on a promotion. And I'm so dense, I would never even think of that because it's just so obvious. You should be excited. So that's an example of really simple projection. But in a little bit of a different case, let's try this one out. I'll read for Susie. That's the person who's killing the conversation. And Candace, if your mic's working, can you read for
Sure.
Jeff?
Yeah, can you hear me, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay, great. My business partner and I have exhausted every funding avenue, and besides, we're no longer feeling excited. I'm feeling more dread every day. We've decided to step away from our business, and we're both looking for tech jobs with steady income.
Oh no, you can't quit now. You've come this far. I can't believe you've thrown in the towel. I know it's tough, but you got to get back on track. And if I were you, I'd revamp your sales approach. I can show you. So we don't have a response for that, but that is not at all what Jeff, aka Candace, is looking for. Susie is she's projecting her failure first of all. It's more important that she doesn't fail than she has a steady income, whereas Jeff is, I need steady income. I don't care about failure right now. So again, the thing is, Susie didn't give Jeff what he needs. What he needs is somebody to talk to about that and not about getting back on track. So if Susie were to keep that, have that in mind when she's talking to her, the conversation might go this way. And if you could kick it off, Candace.
My business partner and I have exhausted every funding avenue, and besides, we're no longer feeling excited. I'm feeling more dread every day. We've decided to step away from our business, and we're both back to looking for tech jobs with steady income.
And so Susie cared about what he needed. She could go one of 3 ways, which is, you guys worked really hard together. How are you going to close up shop? Or what does the tech job market look like for you guys? Need any help? Or I'm sorry to hear that. How are you guys doing? So all of those things are what Jeff needs. He doesn't need advice on getting back on track. That's not what he's looking for. So that's a really simple way. I mean, protection is so easy to do without even realizing it. Kimberly, thanks for picking up on that. I didn't know if anybody would, but appreciate it. Our third one is hijacking, and this is my favorite one. I'm really, really good at it. But hijacking is when you steal somebody else's airtime or attention. So whatever the other person's talking about somehow slides into something about you. And again, this can be completely well-intentioned. It doesn't have to be, I need to be the center of attention, so let's hijack the conversation, make it about me. It can be really easy to think that you're commiserating with somebody, and instead what you really did was just made it about you. You thought you were finding a common thread with them, but instead you just started telling your own story instead of listening to theirs. So this one is a really, at least for me, a really subtle one to sneak in. Risa, if you could read for the sender, I'll read for the conversation killer.
All right. I got the cybersecurity report to submit to the board. It's way more work than I thought, and I've left it till the 11th hour.
Oh my God, that was assigned weeks ago. And I don't understand why the CTO didn't ask me to do the report. I'm the manager.
I don't know why she assigned it to me.
I'm so tired of being overlooked. You saw how they gave that network design gig to Jamie when they know I'm the one who outlined the whole thing for her. So what did we do wrong there? Made it about ourselves totally. And that conversation basically went to a dead end where Risa's like, okay, great, thanks. Yeah, that's not why I was talking to you. So let's try doing this if we don't make it about ourselves and make it about what Risa needs.
I got the cybersecurity report to submit to the board. It's way more work than I thought, and I've left it till the 11th hour.
Tell me where you are with the report. What do you need and how can I help? So again, it's about coaching, it's about developing, it's about giving people what they need. It's not about just trying to commiserate or show them that you're so smart or, you know, what have you. It's about giving them what they need. It's really in all three of these examples, what is the person that I'm talking to, what do they need? That's like the golden rule, at least for me, that I pulled out of this. So with that, we're going to dive into some breakout activity. We're going to put you in small groups. You'll have 12 minutes in your group. Say hi to your folks. Hop over to page 3 of the handout where you'll find these examples and some more, as well as some bullets about these 3 conversation killers. And just discuss, you know, do you catch yourself doing any of these? If you're interested in saying, why do you think you catch yourself doing these, or why do you think you do these? And then what do you think you can do to avoid them? So you'll have 12 minutes in there, and then if anybody's interested in sharing out, you don't have to, but it looks like we have enough time to do that. So let's dive right in. Candace, if you could.
Yep, I'll go ahead and open the rooms.
Cool, thank you. All right, I think we got just about everybody back. Welcome back. Is anybody interested in kind of sharing out what the discussion was like in your group? You know, what which of the conversation killers you guys found yourselves falling into? Maybe why that might be, or what you guys thought you could do to avoid those. And if you can, just use the raise hand. Thank you, Jen O. I'll kick us off.
We talked a lot about our spouses being good testers of those things, whether they like it or not. And we also talked a little bit about those coaching conversations for the folks in your department, and how do you coach when you notice those kinds of behaviors. So a little bit of self-reflection about our family lives, and a little bit of professional reflection in how we work with our teams.
Very cool. I'm kind of laughing because I practice the same things in the last 2 years. I've been doing a lot of this, and I practice the same things with my wife Amber, who also works at the county, and she's picked up on it, and so now she always thinks it's fake. But I'm like, it's genuine, and it's actually making me better at having a fruitful conversation and not just, you know, making it about myself. But yeah, it's bad when they find out. Mauricio, I saw your hand up, but it looks like you snuck out of there.
Well, yeah. Just one thing I wanted to add is, like, sometimes I find myself projecting on my kids, and so just that element, and so just being self-aware. But one of the things that I mentioned in the group is that sometimes we're really good at following these techniques and guidance when we're in meetings and environments where everything's structured, but it's that day-to-day when you're just walking around that just requires that self-awareness.
That's a great point. The off the cuff, just unplanned, is a lot tougher to be in that headspace and be ready to go. If anybody else has anything to share, please do put your hand up. But I've also noticed that the folks that I see as really good coaches that are really good at this stuff are excellent listeners, and not just active listeners, but they really are doing focused listening and really looking for the things that I need or that whoever they're coaching needs. It's really a skill that takes practice. It's pretty impressive. Well, we're doing good on time anyway, so I'm going to move us on to how to avoid these. We had some a couple of points we wanted to make on ways that we can try to stay out of these conversation killers. And that is just thinking about this chart here, which kind of shows your communication style depending on the context. You know, sometimes you might be on the left side of this, where you're being very directive. You're pushing. So this is where you're solving somebody else's problems for them. That's in the push category. And that looks like instructing, giving advice, offering guidance, giving feedback. As we move over to the pull, where you're really trying to pull somebody along rather than push them there, you're trying to just pull them there and help them solve their own problem. That's when you start getting into, you know, asking questions that might raise their own awareness, summarizing, paraphrasing, reflecting, listening to understand. You kind of put it more on them to figure it out, with you as kind of a guide rather than just giving them the answers. So really, you don't empower others by showing them or telling them how right you are, how great your advice is, or exerting control. You know, you might impress them, but you're not going to empower them. So just remember, it's not what you know, it's what they know. So how do we get them to know more? There are certainly places where you just straight up need to be directive. If you need urgency, if you need decisions made quickly, you need to be directive. If you've got people that aren't trained and need a jump start, you're going to be directive. You know, this is how you do things. If you've got new teams forming or new teams that need guidance and structure, you're going to be directive. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with directive. It's more just, if you're always in this directive side, your people are not going to grow, and you're pretty much going to be stuck being the one person that knows everything with a bunch of people that just kind of do what you tell them to do, and you're never going to have people empowered and growing. On the flip side, if you're never in the directive side, you might not get things done that need to get done. So really, I wanted to say this just to consider that there's a scale, and you can move up and down this scale depending on the context and the situation. I think we got a quick second, Risa, if you had anything to add on to that.
Yeah, I kind of piggybacking on your point, Andrew, is like to realize, you know, let's say, you know, you're leading a project and you want to be really clear about what our outcome is. You know, we got a new directive from the state that we must implement this thing, so that you could be really directive, like, here's what we need to accomplish. But then, so you're clear in what the purpose is of the goal, but then you can really be more non-directive when it comes to how do we solve this problem, right? Like, how do we get there? And so just realizing, I think, to your point, that you may be moving up and down this spectrum depending on what the project is, what part of the project you're in, which team you're working with. And even with individuals, you may need to flex depending on their core values and needs. So.
Exactly. Thank you. And that kind of leads into a concept called commander's intent. And Perry, if you've got 2 seconds before we run out of time, can you share with us just what that is and why that's useful?
Sure, and then Mauricio can fact check me, right? And maybe we have someone in here who is in the Navy. I think it was Charles, so maybe Charles can fact check me too. But we in a separate book study our team did, we learned about commander's intent, and really that's the idea that comes from the military, where we can't make this 112-point plan from start to finish, lay everything out in directions, when maybe in the first battle, you know, we're on step 9 of the plan, everything goes crazy. We can't do the rest of the plan because now we've got to revamp. So that commander's intent is, at the very end, this is essentially what matters. This is the most important thing we need, or this is the bottom line, or this is what we're trying to get to. So in our context, a directive might be, you know, we've got inventory and we have to get it done by June 30th. And this is a must do, right? That might be a directive. But after giving the directive, you can turn it back to the team and say, well, tell me how that went last year when we did this. Okay, what I'm hearing you say is we were mostly good, but we were challenged by this part. So that could be asking questions and paraphrasing. Or it could be, hey, team, you know, do you have any new ideas that might make the process even better? And listening and getting that. So still creating the environment where you can get the input and get the involvement, but the directive is still there as kind of that foundational piece or that backbone. So when everything else goes crazy, at least we know what the directive is. We have to get this done by June 30th with these criteria, for example. Candace, did you want to add? I know Candace really appreciates commander's intent. So anything else there?
Yeah, I was just gonna, well, I put into the chat. To me, I think a commander's intent is like a bite-sized piece of a leader's vision to guide action from the team. So it helps to know like what is, and from Perry, like what is your vision? And so when you tell us, okay, like we need this by this deadline and it's a few sentences, I actually just gravitate towards that and then keep it in my focus instead of thinking, okay, there's all these details, all these things. Like what is it that we actually want to accomplish? And it helps me to focus on that, which is one of my core values, focus. So
thank you guys. So wrapping this section up, one thing that just really helps is just remembering it's not about what you need, it's about what they need. That is like the golden rule of all of these is it's about what they need in this context of coaching and developing. So when in doubt, what do they need? Not what do you need? I've chewed up enough of our time. Thank you, Risa, for sacrificing your time. Perry was totally on schedule and I wasn't this time. So, it's always got to be somebody. Risa's going to talk to us about anger.
All right, thanks, Andrew. But I think that was a really valuable discussion. So thank you guys for going there. So quick show of hands, how many of us honestly actively avoid anger, both in ourselves as well as we try to mitigate it in others? So virtual or your actual hand, right? Like I try to avoid conflict. I don't like anger, right? So, anger is really misunderstood and an undervalued emotion. As IT project leaders, we're expected to manage our own projects and our both our own anger, right, when stuff gets us frustrated, as well as that in others. So we really need to find out how can we manage something that sometimes we don't understand and we often try to avoid. So we're going to just take a couple minutes to get to know anger a little better. So anybody seen this image before, this anger iceberg? Yeah, a few people have, right? So, again, this is just the concept that, just like an iceberg where you can only see a little bit of it floating above the surface, but there's really a lot going on below the surface. The same can be said for anger. So often when we see anger, there's really more stuff going on. So it's really a great analogy. So, let's do this. Just in the chat, go ahead and choose a GIF or emoji that expresses what anger looks like to you, right? So Candace already put one in there, right? Anger from inside out. So what does anger look like for you? Okay, Candace also feels like Pikachu is angry. Yes, love it, Austin. That's a good one. Oh, I like it, Dave. Yep. Nice one, Kirby. Yep. Sometimes anger is a little more subtle, right? Yes, you guys are definitely getting anger, right? So keep in mind when someone's showing signs of anger, right? It's likely a sign there's something else or some core need or value that's not being met, right? Like Perry was saying before, she's noticed that when she's getting upset, usually it's rubbing up against one of her core values. So same thing for me, my story about, I was getting angry, it was rubbing up against my core values. So really keep in mind, anger is like a distraction or a disguise for some unmet need, right? Something else that's going on beneath the surface. So we want to take a couple minutes to look deeper in that beneath the surface to find out what's really going on, both for ourselves as well as when we're working with others who might be looking like some of those GIFs in the chat. All right. So let's look below the surface. So instead of ignoring or avoiding anger, let's try to understand what's really going on so we can flex those EQ muscles and understand where people are coming from and what we can do about it. So we can use this anger iceberg kind of like a diagnostic tool to dig deeper and understand things from both like our project team members' perspective, maybe their core values, and then maybe using some of those empathy statements. And then as Andrew showed us, maybe we're trying not to kill the conversations, right? So that way we can really identify the root cause and actually deal with it rather than just kind of avoiding the anger altogether. So go ahead and open your chat again. And rather than a GIF this time, think about a time that you personally felt angry. And in the chat, go ahead and type for us, what was it below the surface? So you can use one of the words like that you see on screen or another word that comes to mind. Just something, so you felt angry, but really there was something else going on. So yeah, I'm seeing anxious, overwhelmed, disrespected, yeah, disappointed, frustrated, some fear. Yeah. So it's fascinating to me because those are all things that you can address, right? Much more so if somebody's angry, it's hard to address just angry. But if you can get to why somebody might be disappointed or annoyed or feeling attacked, those are things we can actually address and deal with, as opposed to just trying to avoid anger altogether. So great job, you guys. Let's talk a little bit more now. Since we now understand that below anger, there's a bunch of other stuff going on, what do we do about that, right? What do we do when we realize that somebody's angry and there might be something else going on? I am laughing at John A's gif. Okay, so let's talk about next steps. What do we do about it? Okay, so the first thing we want to do is try to identify what important need or core value is not being met, right? So I know Perry, she really likes organization. She might be getting angry or frustrated because this process isn't very organized, right? So that's something I can try to, not necessarily project, but maybe something I know about her. And so I might be curious about that, and I might want to ask her more about that. So if that's the scenario we're going to play out, I might say, Perry, hey, what is it that you need to have this feel good for you, right? And then I might follow that up with, and what can I do about it? Hey, can you like work on the organization plan so we've got our timing down? Yes, I can absolutely do that, right? For us personally, we want to use I feel statements. So I feel angry or frustrated about something. Because, and then we can talk about why, as opposed to just using I am statements. So if I am angry or I am frustrated, there's not a lot you can do about that. Versus if you start to use and model like I feel frustrated because of this situation, feelings can shift and change. So it's not core to who we are. It's just a present state that we can do things to adjust. So anyway, I know that's kind of a quick overview of anger, but hopefully it gives you enough to kind of think about when you encounter anger, either on the job, in your projects, or, as Jenno said, even with your spouses, right? This will give us a little more insight about what might be lying beneath the surface and what we can actually do about it to address it. So I think I got us back on time, or mostly back on time. So I'm going to hand it back to Andrew.
Nice job, Risa. I feel that you did a great job there. So I'm going to dive into the social skills piece of EQ. And when we talk about this, we're talking about the way you ask questions and the types of questions you can ask. I do want to say that if my wife knew I was talking to people about social skills, she would laugh and laugh and laugh. So yeah. I do want to say, though, that the context here is not just questions, period, but the questions in the sense of developing people and ideas. Again, that's the context we're talking. We're not talking about problem solving specifically. I do want to say the way you ask your questions is really important, and the way you ask and the specific wording you use can really make a big difference on what the response is. So I'm going to kind of crank through those so that we can kind of get back on track time-wise. But first off, your frame of mind is really important. And I know I kind of talked about this earlier, but it's all about curiosity about them and empowering them. That's the frame of mind you really need for these questions to really click for you and for you to be able to use them effectively with folks. So think about that. These 6 types of questions, no surprises here: when, where, who, why, what, how. The first 3 are purely informational. When will the meeting start? Where's the contractor at? Who else do you need on your team? It's pure facts. We don't need to spend much time on that. What we want to dig into a little bit is why. So this is a narrative question, so it gives you the story and a way into somebody's thoughts and feelings. Specifically why is, for exploring motive, intention, and cause. This can tend to focus on the past, which is good if that's where you want to be. But if you're not trying to look into the past, then just think why might not be the right type of question to be asking. Without diving too much into it, there are a lot of common pitfalls here that you can end up doing guessing and theorizing. You can dive into the rabbit hole of conjecture and blame, which really means that you as the inquirer may lose control of the dialogue, which can not be a great thing sometimes. This can feel like criticism. Why did you do that? Saying why did you do that instead of how did that happen or what happened, that can be a very different way that will get you a different answer. And one thing that I think is interesting is that the interpretation depends on power dynamics. So, you think about a student intern asking a network engineer, why does this room have more bandwidth than that room? The way the network engineer is going to respond is going to be very different than if a CTO asks them, why does this room have more bandwidth than that room? That might come off more as an accusation or a critique. So just think about the power dynamics involved when you're asking your questions. And the last piece with why is that it can tend to fix you in the past, and that memories can be subjective, so you might not be getting good data out of these questions. So it's a great question to ask, but it does have pitfalls. You just want to be aware of them. Diving into the what, this is more focused on the present. This is a great question used to expand possibilities. It's proactively kind of keeps you and the other person in the fact-focused and action-oriented space. As long as you don't ask, like, what were you thinking? So we have some examples of some of the types of questions you might use that start with what in a coaching and developing ideas type of capacity. One thing I want to point out is the power of else. So what else would help you? What else can you do? Just sneaking that word else into this might help the other person start to think about other options along that route. It's just, again, expanding ideas, developing people. So anyways, one of the secrets of the innovation and developing people is really asking the right questions there. And it seems so subtle, but it really is just changing the way you phrase your inquiries can really make quite a difference. Our last piece is how, and that is more focused on the future. Another great one to develop ideas in people. This one also stays towards facts and actions. And I'm going to sneak in just the power of else here. How else could you look at this? Such a simple thing to just throw that word in there and get a different response than you might. Again, other questions might kind of be conversation killers where they end up kind of dead-ended. Saying something like, how else could you look at this, can open up that person to have different thoughts and ways of looking at things. So a lot of examples there. I want to kind of treat this more of a reference than to just kind of sit here and preach about it too much. What I do want to preach about real quickly is the type of question you ask being closed-ended versus open-ended. And before I stop, Lori, these 6 types of questions are on the handout. So I think this is I'm not sure what page this is, but it is on the handout. It has some of the bullet points here as well as the examples for you. But here we're talking about closed-ended versus open-ended questions. This is such a simple thing to do that makes such a big difference, in my opinion. When you're asking somebody, hey, does that sound like a good plan? You're going to get, yeah, sure, whatever. They're going to kind of thumbs up and walk away. Versus, what do you think of this plan? You are not inviting them to say yes or no. You're inviting them to tell you what you actually think. So these are some quick examples here, but really this applies everywhere. And I've been on the receiving end of this. Just recently, Perry asked, what else am I missing? Instead of just saying, am I missing anything? Where I would have been like, no, you're good. She says, what else am I missing? And then I've got to say something, right? So it just is really more of an invitation to pull a response out of me where it would have been easy for me to just say, yeah, it looks great. And maybe it did look great and that's fine, but it doesn't lead you down to this an automatically closed conversation. So closed-ended versus open-ended, I find that to be really effective. And there's a rule in coaching of something like 20% of your questions should be closed-ended. Most of them should be open-ended. So just think about the way you phrase questions can make such a difference. And I'd like to leave you guys with a quote by Albert Einstein. If I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I'd spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper questions to ask, and I could solve the problem in less than 5 minutes. So I thought that was a pretty cool quote. That's good stuff there. Beware of you're asking a yonker, and the power of silence. That's a great point. As well as the count to 7. Just 7 seconds and let them respond. Anyways, Perry, hand it back barely on time to wrap us up.
All right, awesome. Yes, wait time. Absolutely, Risa, wait time. All right, everyone, as we head into the wrap up, we're going to invite you to play a little game with us if you would like. So here's how the game's going to work. I've just put the directions in the chat. It's a totally random game. It really requires no talent or anything special. It's totally random. But we have a couple of copies of the book to give away, so we thought we would offer those up. We'll mail it out to you if you're the winner. Some of you already have a copy, so if you win, you can either elect to give it to a colleague or just let us know. But anyhow, here's how the game's going to go. Everyone has that raise hand icon, and that actually raises the hand. This is different than the thumbs up, okay? So raise hand is what we're going to be using. Now, feel free to test it right now if you want to. You can click it, unclick it. But what it does is it puts like a little number. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. And when I say go, you're going to hit raise hand, right? And we're going to get a list of all the people, and you're going to have a number. And then I'm going to say, Candace, can you generate a random number for us? We've got a random number generator. And she's going to give us a number, and whoever has the matching number will win the copy. All right? Again, requires no talent. So let's start with everyone putting their hand down. And I'm gonna use the pop out feature here. Let me pop out this part so I can see. I want to see what's going on for a broader screen here. Okay. So put your mouse over the raise hand. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, now if you want to see your number, if you click the People tab, you can see what number you are. All right. All right, last call for numbers. Oh gosh. It stopped. Andrew, stop counting for me after a certain number. We got 38, right?
Yep.
All right. Okay. We might need to mute someone. There we go. Mute. There we go. All right. Candace, can you generate a random number for us between 1 and 39, please?
Yes. Between 1 and 39, the number is 34.
Oh gosh.
Oh no.
Who is it?
Wait, leave your hands up.
Yeah, don't change your hand number.
25, 26, 27, 28, 29.
Is it Patricia?
30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Okay. Nicholas,
Nicholas,
you are,
winner.
yeah,
Okay,
you're first
yes.
winner. Okay.
Nicholas, so we're going to need to get from Nicholas's mailing address to send it. Okay, everyone put your hand down. We can do this 2 more times. We got 2 more books, okay? Hands down. Okay, yes, and nice round of applause there. Thank you, Austin, for good job, everyone. Okay, hands down. Or, yep, there we go. All right, 2 more times. Lower hand, I can do a lower hand here. Okay, all right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Gonna get a new number. Okay, this time we've got, okay, gotta stop. Okay, final call. Okay, we got 40, Candace, a number between 1 and 40. What's her number?
17.
17, we've got Kristen.
Kristen.
Woohoo, Kristen. Okay, that's right. 1 more, everyone put your hands down. We got last round. 3rd book to give away. This is our final copy. We've exhausted all of our copies. This is the very last one in our supply. Just a few more hands to go down. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And last time around. And 1, 2, 3, go. Get your new number for your hand. Okay. Last call. Okay, Candace, our number is
9.
Oh, we got it already. 9. Justin, do you want to keep your copy and give it away? Would you like to receive the copy and give it to someone?
Pass it along. Roll the candle.
Okay, roll a new number, Candace.
All right. 7.
7. Edith, would you like a copy? Edith didn't get a copy last time. We've got a copy for you, Edith, and we're happy to see you.
Yay! Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, thanks for playing, everyone. Please feel free to put your hands down as we do a final wrap up here. Let me pop this back in. Okay, so as we're wrapping up, today. We wanted to share with you our takeaways, but here's really kind of the bottom line. As you're leaving this workshop, we're hoping you can say that you know your core values. You've had a chance to explore them, identify them. You know, some of you might go on an interview for a new job. This is a great place to talk about your core values because, again, all of your actions and behaviors typically align with your values, and it's a great way to describe what you stand for. So just a little tip there, knowing core values is great in a lot of contexts. Second, we want you to have an idea of what it looks like to do empathy. We've all heard about, you know, how to try to be the mirror, but this is really about putting yourself in other people's shoes. And really the bottom line is, can you be present? Can you be focused and be listening? It's really about what the other person needs. Andrew took us through all these different conversation killer ideas. So really the idea there is, can you take steps to avoid that? Can you try to avoid hijacking? Can you try to not just give them that advice that they didn't even ask for, or stop projecting your own feelings? Or start to recognize when they're occurring, and that might be the first step. The anger iceberg, you know, we encounter anger in all facets of our life. Anger, from the way we understood it in the book, is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not qualitative, but it's more about understanding where does anger come from and then being able to figure out those steps to take. Or if someone else is angry, trying to understand where they're coming from and helping so we can, like Risa said, take something to address it. It's hard to just to address anger head on. And then last, recognizing that the way we phrase questions matters. I've learned that when someone asks me a why question, like, why did you do that? That makes me feel a certain way. It's like, ooh, I feel like they're coming at me. Why did I do that? Versus, you know, how did you come to the conclusion that that's the step that was needed? Oh, let me tell you, like, there's just a different response that we might get with the way that we ask questions. And then Andrew gave that really great tip, the power of else, using else to keep things moving, to push things forward. So, you know, all of that in a nutshell is what we took away from the book that we wanted to share with you. We're leaving you with the handout that could be a good takeaway to share with other people. It is now officially time for us to wrap. So let me, Andrew, did you grab the control back?
Yeah, totally on accident. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm like, where did my little clicker go? That's all right. Cool. So I just want to do a quick plug. We've got a conference coming up. And I'm actually going to bump forward to this slide just to show it to you. Many of you have already signed up. I recognize lots of names here from the roster. So thanks in advance for those of you who've already signed up. But just want to get this on your radar that on June 21st, we have an all-day event, completely free, no travel. Look at all these cool topics. Some of the people on this workshop today are speaking. If you're a beginner, brand new to project management, you can come learn. If you've kind of got a background in this already, we've got new topics. We have these awesome share outs from all these different districts, charter schools, and county offices around IT projects. We're really excited about this additional piece. This is brand new for us. We've never done an in-person conference. So that's what we're doing on June 27th and 28th. If you are at an organization and you're feeling ready to actually implement more formalized project management, either in your IT department or even broadly across your organization, come to this part. This is where we're really going to help people take next steps on figuring out how to implement. And here's the link to register for both. You just click here, and that's where all of our files are. This recorded presentation is there as well. Okay, so we invite you to come. We wanted to give a big shout out to the Technology Steering Committee for supporting our event as a sponsor. Very exciting, and we're really excited to partner with not only TSC, but also all of the districts, charter schools, and county offices in our state, and maybe even beyond. We might have visitors from other places. As we leave today, though, we just wanted to remind you that we've got all of our stuff out here on our website, and if you wanted to email us, please feel free to email us, epmo@sdcui.net. Always looking to grow our community and be engaged with all of you. So thank you. And this is our fourth and final workshop of 2024 for us. So this kind of concludes our whole slate. And our next big focus is that conference in June. So we look forward to seeing you there, hopefully. Okay, everyone. Thanks a bunch. Go off and use those EQ skills. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.